I'm back. No, not really. I'm still using boxing. Haman still is garbage. Hello my friends, and welcome to today's video where we're going to be talking about Hamon. For those of you who are longtime viewers, you probably know that this is the spec that I used at the start of the channel and used a ton, pretty much exclusively, until they fixed the health buffs on the boxing passives, and then I went over there and haven't looked back. Honestly, looking back at it, even back then, boxing without the extra health passives likely was still better than Hamon for a few of the reasons that I'll be talking about today. And you know what? Even now you can put up a pretty good fight, if not a completely even fight with boxing users, and we're going to talk about exactly why that is in this video, because I'm going to be breaking down a lot of things, a lot of myths, a lot of stats, all the stuff that people are too lazy to go do themselves, so it's what I'm doing today, just so I can showcase these problems that won't get fixed. And just for the record, before we begin, what I said at the start of the video is 100% a joke. Hamon does not suck, it is the second best spec in the game, and it's good, it just has some problems. With that out of the way though, I'm gonna start off with talking about stats, and this first part of the video is going to be mostly a comparison between Hamon and boxing. As for the stats themselves, I'm gonna lay them out for you right here. Hamon has a damage resistance of 30%, as well as a damage increase of 25%. Boxing, on the other hand, has a damage resistance of 25%, as well as some health nodes that I'm not sure exactly how much health they grant you. I did a lot of testing, and trying to figure out exactly how much health these nodes give you was not one of those things. But on the contrary, I did test the exact amount of hits to kill while using Star Platinum the World versus both of these specs at the exact same amount of vitality and regen, and the results of that test got me 33 hits to kill versus boxing and 31 hits to kill versus Hamon. Meaning that despite having an extra 5% damage increase, it still takes more hits to kill a boxing player than it will a Hamon player at the end of the day. Now I know what you're about to tell me, and it's a valid viewpoint. You're gonna tell me that because Hamon also gets that 20% damage increase, that means that raw damage output wise, Hamon is going to beat out boxing even despite the fact that you need those extra 2 hits to kill. Those extra 2 hits with Star Platinum the World are, with 10 damage M1s, about 20 damage. Dealing an extra 20 damage isn't exactly the end of the world, and just doing more damage on every hit, if you take 2 Star Platinum the Worlds, you put one with Hamon and one with boxing, you put them in the ring, you lock only M1s, in theory, the one with Hamon should win. That is true. But obviously, if you've played this game, you know in practice, that's not how it goes. But why is that? Well, that's where we go to take a look at the skill tree of both of these specs. And this is where the problems start. In order to get all of the passives, as well as all of the charge nodes, and both the moves that are not Sunlight Yellow Overdrive, Hamon is going to set you back 22 skill points. For boxing, in order to get all of the health passives, both your moves, and because it's basically required, Mastered Eye Gouge puts you at 16 skill points. So in order to get the cheapest workable build for boxing, it takes you 6 less skill points. So you remember that fact that Hamon is going to beat out boxing because of the damage increase? Well, now boxing has 6 more skill points that it can put into any of its skill trees, including health and regen. This effectively nullifies that damage increase, putting us once again on even playing fields. But that even playing field does not last long. The real killer between Hamon and boxing at the end of the day is definitely the moves you have access to, and the fact that boxing's are just better. That's what it comes down to. Mostly this applies to Scarlet Overdrive and Jawbreaker, because honestly, Zoom Punch versus Eye Gouge isn't even really a good comparison because the two moves are radically different. They're both stuns, but the way they're supposed to be implemented into gameplay is totally different, so I don't think it's super fair to compare the two. Jawbreaker and Scarlet Overdrive, on the other hand, oh boy, where do I even begin? First off, something that is baffling that it's even a problem, and that's the amount of time that it takes for the moves to start up and actually connect with their opponent. In case you've been living under a rock, Jawbreaker comes out faster than Scarlet Overdrive does. Jawbreaker true combos off of barrages, as well as if you do an M1 and then immediately use it. Unless the opponent has a frame 1 counter, it will either hit them or block break. Scarlet Overdrive, on the other hand, does not abide by these rules. Scarlet Overdrive only has 8 more frames of startup than Jawbreaker. That, under normal circumstances, would be a mostly negligible amount. In-depth frame data like that in a game like YBA usually isn't that important. But for the second time since counter startup, I'm talking about frame data, and Scarlet Overdrive fails because of its terrible frame data. Because of those extra 8 frames on Scarlet Overdrive, it means number 1, it doesn't combo off of barrages, and number 2, if you M1 and then use it, a lot of the time people can use a move, whether it be an M1 to cancel it, or a counter, making it so that it just doesn't work. So already we've got problems. Why they didn't just copy-paste Jawbreaker in this regard, I have absolutely no clue, but they didn't. The other big one is obvious, the damage. Scarlet Overdrive notoriously does less damage. To be exact, Scarlet does 8.5 less damage unupgraded versus unupgraded Jawbreaker. But you know what? The developers programmed something in order to counteract the fact that it does less damage. It procs a fire effect. Oh shit. Except for fire is hands down the worst status effect in the entire game, and honestly, sometimes I wonder why it's even there to begin with. And that's because dashing instantly puts it out, which, in the grand scheme of things, is a really good thing. If that didn't happen, then fire would be blatantly overpowered, as seen by when it bugged and dashing didn't put out fire. The Magician's Red Apocalypse was terrifying. But Scarlet Overdrive's fire is worse than regular fire. It's something so subtle that obviously the developers never picked up on it. And that's the fact that when you get ragdolled in YBA, you dash. If you're good at the game, you dash. Every time. If you get ragdolled in this game and you stand up and you don't dash, then you're basically asking to get either hit by a block break or hit by a stun immediately upon standing up. Sure, you've got invincibility frames, but if you don't dash away immediately, then those are gonna run out and you're gonna get hit by something. So that means that when you get hit by this move, you dash. And when you dash, the fire goes out. In other words, it's worthless. But wait, there's more. Scarlet Overdrive also does not take away the stand of the opponent. Jawbreaker, if you hit someone who has a standout, it will immediately stand crash them, no matter what. Scarlet Overdrive, not the case. So yet another reason why Scarlet Overdrive is just objectively worse than Jawbreaker. So let's do a recap then, shall we? Scarlet Overdrive takes longer to come out than Jawbreaker, does less damage than Jawbreaker, doesn't stand crash, requires you to have Hamon charge to even use it, and something I just realized, costs an extra skill point in order to even get. What the fuck happened here? So I brought up charging at the end there, talking about how you need to charge in order to use the moves. Charging in of itself, though, is what makes the spec interesting, but also frustrating for such a small reason. And that's that charging your Hamon at any point immediately, jarringly stops your sprint, and you have to restart it every single time. It's such a small thing that in normal circumstances, you would never notice. But here, oh my god, does it get obnoxious. You have to charge all the time. If you don't charge, you are literally just a speckless opponent with less health because you used your skill points on the charge nodes. And the fact that every single time you charge, it stops you from running and you have to restart your sprint is the most obnoxious thing on the planet. It's infuriating. It doesn't help the fact that the game has such an inconsistent lag when it comes to charging that sometimes you'll charge, you'll stop, you'll press the sprint button, and nothing will happen. And then you'll press it again, and then it will eat your input because the game slightly hiccuped because it can't handle the effects. Anyone who's ever played Hamon knows exactly what I'm talking about. It's super frustrating, and I find zero reason at all why charging your bar should stop you from running. Sure, while it's charging you can't move as fast, but after the fact, why did my sprint stop? It just doesn't make sense. So with all these things being said, I'm gonna conclude with the Eclipse's guide to fixing Hamon. Number 1, reduce the overall cost of the skill points. The fact that in order to max out your charge and your duration, you need to pay more than boxing in order to get the passives is impeccably stupid. And the fact that Zoom Punch and Scarlet Overdrive cost more than Jawbreaker and Eye Gouge just by themselves doesn't make any sense and has no consistency. Number 2, Scarlet Overdrive should be more in line with Jawbreaker. There's no reason that Scarlet Overdrive shouldn't come out just as fast as Jawbreaker, do nearly the same damage, and stand crash. These traits are applied to a move that doesn't require any sort of resource to be used, and so the fact that it requires you to have Hamon charged and uses that resource, it should be comparable in nature. Number 3, make it so that when you charge the bar, it doesn't stop your sprint. You have to press and hold this key constantly throughout every single fight. The fact that you have to restart your sprint every single time this happens, and sometimes it just doesn't restart your sprint because the input gets eaten, it makes playing the spec a chore. And number 4, which wasn't even in my video, is to remove the extra damage versus Vampire. Just get rid of it. Vampire already isn't that great of a spec, and most of the time loses to people using boxing. The fact that if you're using Hamon and you go up against a Vampire, you automatically win, is complete bullshit and has no right to be in the game. But Eclipse, the canon! Fuck the canon. This is about game balance, and Hamon versus Vampire is not balanced, not fun, and it's just stupid. And there you go, 4 simple steps, and you make Hamon more on par with boxing, make everything more fun for everyone, and maybe we'll see some variety. I think the biggest thing is Scarlet Overdrive, because this move being crap basically makes the whole spec crap. Having your true block break be that slow is so bad for a spec. Now the video is pretty much over, but I do want to address some things that people are bound to bring up, and they won't watch this far, so it's kind of pointless even addressing them. But I'm gonna do it anyway. And the first thing I know people are gonna say is that you don't need to get all of the Hamon charge or Hamon duration nodes, and therefore you can have the spec cost less. And this maybe will work out for you in main game, but if you've played any amount of competitive 1v1s, you know that this is outwardly false and a complete death sentence. Hamon's biggest weakness is the fact that it just cannot deal with pressure. And if you start getting pressured and you can't charge, your game is over because you're effectively a specless, you take a boatload of damage and you die. So each individual second that you have to charge your Hamon could be the difference between taking 7 damage or taking 10 damage. And each one of those increased 4 damage that you take is the difference between you losing or winning a game. So while back in the day when I was worse at the game, I would gimp out on some of the duration and charge nodes, nowadays if you're trying to do well with this and you're not just playing SBR or main game, you're gonna struggle if you don't have max charge and duration. You have to put the pressure on, and you have to be able to charge quick so you can alleviate pressure from yourself. It just comes with the territory. And the other thing that people are bound to say is that rather than buffing up Hamon to the point of boxing, they should nerf boxing to be more in line with Hamon. And this I just can't agree with. I think it's a matter of opinion, and you can definitely look at it either way, and there's no right or wrong answer for it. But in my opinion, if most of the game is using boxing, used to boxing, and enjoys playing boxing, then it doesn't make sense to nerf that to be more in line with things people are not using and don't like to use. Rather than butchering things that people already use in order to try to force them to use something else, I personally find it more logical to try to make it so that people are incentivized to try to switch up their gameplay and try something else because it got buffs or something like that. When changes and stuff are applied to stands, many people flock over to them to see how it works out now. But at the end of the day, that's just how I feel about it, and as I already said, it's a matter of opinion. With that wrapping up though, I am done here. Let me know what you think of the spec in the comments, and if you would change anything, and if so, what? If you watched all the way to this point and you enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a like and subscribe. If you didn't, then you can leave a dislike, but I won't see it since YouTube took them away. And with all that being said, have a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and I'll see you next time.